I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to tell you about my reading goals for the coming year in 2023. I've already done another video talking about how I did in my reading goals for 2022 and all my reading stats for the past year, so be sure to go over and watch that video as well. But now we're going to talk about the goals for the future for this coming year. Before we dive into my goals, I'm going to reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're going to shout out somebody randomly. Today's shout out goes to Get Bookish. I will leave a link to their channel over in the description, so be sure to go over and subscribe to them. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a like if you've got some good reading goals for this coming year. And be sure to follow me over on Goodreads and Instagram and Twitter and Storygraph and all the places. Okay. So last year I had a goal not to read a certain number of books, but to read a certain number of pages. Always before this past year, I've done a goal for a certain number of books, and I've used the Goodreads challenge to keep track of it. But this last year I wanted to try something different, and I wanted to do a certain number of pages, and that really worked for me. Because then I feel free to pick up longer books, and it's not like so much of a commitment like, oh no, I'm falling behind in my book numbers. This way, if it's page numbers, then you can do a longer book. So last year, my goal was to read 100 pages a day. So I think I'm going to keep that same goal for this year. 100 pages a day really seems to work for me. It seems like that's a good round number, and it fits with my reading habits. And so that's what I'm going to do again this year. Another goal that I do every year is to read 12 classics. Usually I end up reading more than 12 classics, especially if you count in modern classics as well. But I feel like 12 is a good round number, one every month. I usually end up reading more like in Jane Austen July and during Booktober. This year I have a very specific TBR for these 12 classics that I want to read. I want to read The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. I keep saying I want to read more Trollope. I read the Barsetshire Chronicles, the whole series, and super loved it and just fell in love with Trollope. And I keep saying I want to read more from him, and people always say how The Way We Live Now is one of his best. So I absolutely need to dive in with that one. I also want to read The Law and the Lady by Wilkie Collins. Wilkie Collins is one of my favorites, although sometimes I don't always love every book by him, but I think The Law and the Lady, from what I've heard of the plot, should be a really good one. For the rest of the classics on my TBR this year, I did a video back in 2018 listing my 5 favorite classics. Like, these are the top 5 of all time. And I actually also listed in that video 5 honorable mentions, 10 classics from that video that I said these are my favorites. But most of those I have not read in like 10, even 15 years. I mean, it's been a long time since I've read some of those. And some of them I've only read it once. And I feel like, can you really say it's your favorite if you've only read it once? And that was 15 years ago. So my goal for this year is I want to reread every classic that I talked about in that video. So the first one is North and South. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell is, such a favorite. So wonderful. Now I think this one I have read twice, but it's been a good minute. I want to say it's been like maybe 6 or 7 years since I've read North and South, so I am definitely ready for a reread. Now, the next one on that video is actually J.R.R. by Charlotte Bronte. However, I just reread that in 2021. So I might not reread J.R.R. Because, it's only been a couple years since I read that one, and it's still a favorite, still love it. Another one that I just reread a few months ago was Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. Somehow I always end up going back to Much Ado About Nothing. I think I reread it like every other year. It's just so fun, and it's short, and it's so comical, and always puts a smile on my face. So I might not reread Much Ado About Nothing because I just read that. But the next one, it has been a good 15 years, I think, since I have read David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I always say, this is my favorite Dickens. And so I'm a little nervous going in to read it. I think this will be my 3rd time reading it, but What if it's not my favorite anymore? I don't know, we'll just have to see. Another one that it's been a good like 12, 13, 14 years since I've read is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I think I've only read this one twice as well. Or maybe I've only read it once. Oh dear, it's been a while. It's been quite a while. So Count of Monte Cristo absolutely has to get read this year. And then the honorable mentions in that video are Emma by Jane Austen, which I think I reread that a couple years ago for Jane Austen July, but Emma's so fun. I think I'll definitely I'll just reread it again for Jane Austen July this year. The other one is Waverley by Sir Walter Scott. When people ask me, what's your favorite Sir Walter Scott? Not that I've read all of Sir Walter Scott yet, but the favorite that I've read so far is Waverley. It's just such a great story, and I just love Sir Walter Scott's storytelling and his writing style and everything. But I've only read it once. Definitely need to reread Waverley. The next one is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. The Woman in White just has so many different storytelling elements that I super love. It has the wonderful hero and the damsel in distress and the crazy mysteries and the villain and just, oh my goodness, just so many great things in The Woman in White. It's such an exciting story. I'm trying to think, I think it's probably been like 9 years, maybe 8 years or something. It's been a while since I've read The Woman in White. And then of course, Bleak House. Oh my goodness, it's been like 12 years since I've read Bleak House. Bleak House I think is my second favorite Dickens. So David Copperfield is my first favorite and Bleak House is my second favorite. Again, with Bleak House, there are just so many layers to the story and so many different story elements. There's a mystery element and like a detective element and like all these different layers. Just so many different characters and the way the story all comes together at the end is so good. So Bleak House, definitely need to reread. And another Charles Dickens, Tale of Two Cities. I think I've only read Tale of Two Cities once. Yeah, but it's just so memorable, you know, it's just so powerful. But I'm sure there are little details that I've forgotten and everything that'll make it really fun to read again. So that's it. Those are the 12 classics on my TBR for 2023. Most of them are from rereading my favorites. So I am super looking forward to all my classics reading this year because I'm rereading all of my favorites. And I feel like that'll kind of make it easier for me to pick up some of these longer classics. I'm already familiar with the story. I already know that I love it. So it's not like such a big commitment or whatever to pick it up because I know I'll just fly through it because I'll enjoy it so much. So one of the goals that I did not get done last year was to reread The Lord of the Rings for like the 10th time. I didn't get that done last year, so that is on my goals list for this year. I actually want to reread it in January, like in the next couple of weeks. I want to get that read. And I think probably later on in the year, I'm going to reread Narnia again. I just read Chronicles of Narnia in December, but I'll probably reread it again towards the end of the year in November or December of this year. I just love rereading them. Just about every year I try to reread those again. So speaking of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, I really want to read more books from them. You know, I'm always rereading Lord of the Rings and Narnia and just kind of going back to those, my favorites, but I do want to read more from these authors. I've read quite a lot of Lewis and most of Tolkien, but there are still a few things of theirs that I have not gotten around to yet. So I decided to set up a list where I want to read one book every month, either from Tolkien or Lewis, like actually written by them, or something written about them, or some sort of commentary on their works, or a biography, or something like that. Some sort of Lewis or Tolkien related something every month. So this is my TBR. For January, I'm reading If I Had Lunch with C.S. Lewis by Alistair McGrath. In February, I'm going to be reading Tolkien, A Look Behind Lord of the Rings by Lynn Carter. For March, I'm going to read Planet Narnia by Michael Ward. In April, I'm going to read The Fall of Arthur by J.R.R. Tolkien. In May, I'm going to be reading God in the Dock by C.S. Lewis. And then in June, I'm going to reread Tolkien's Ordinary Virtues by Mark Eddy Smith. In July, I'm going to be reading Christian Myth Makers by Roland Hine. In August, I'm going to read C.S. Lewis, A Life Inspired by Christopher Gordon. In September, I'm going to be reading Understanding Lord of the Rings by Neil D. Isaacs and Rose A. Zimberdo. In October, I'm going to read a little teeny book called Following Prince Caspian by Thomas Williams. In November, I'm going to be reading J.R.R. Tolkien, A Life Inspired by Wyatt North. Then in December, I'm going to be reading Bandersnatch by Diana Glyer. So those are the 12 C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien related books that I'm going to be reading this year. Quite a lot on my plate, but I love these authors and I love diving into these things, so I think I'm going to really enjoy these. All right, my next goal, as always, is that I need to finish some series. I have like 28 series that I'm in the middle of reading and I just need to finish them. So I have 3 on my list for this year that's like, you have got to finish this. I only have 3 more books left in the Redwall series by Brian Jacques. So I am definitely going to be finishing up Redwall this year. I have 3 more books, I think, left in the 39 Steps, the Richard Hannay series by John Buchan. And I started reading the first couple of books of Roswell High. So this is this really dorky, super stupid teen sci-fi series about aliens in Roswell. And I really cannot emphasize enough how stupid and dorky and idiotic and really kind of badly written these books are. But because when I was a teenager, I loved the Roswell TV show, I have all this nostalgia centered around these characters. So I've really enjoyed the first couple of books and I want to read the rest of the series. I think there's 11 books in the series and I just want to read them all this year and just have a lot of fun. Another one of my goals, as always, is to read my own books. Don't accept so many review copies. Be a little more circumspect, a little more selective about the review copies that I'll take from publishers and try to read your own stinking books this year. Last year, I was about 50-50 with my own books and review copies. So this year, I'm going to try to at least do 50-50, maybe do a little bit better than that. And my last goal for this year is I want to read more mysteries. I feel like I just get stuck in classics and fantasy, and then I love mysteries. Why don't I read more mysteries? I think mysteries are so much fun. So I want to read at least 3 more books in the Aunt Dimity series by Nancy Atherton. I want to read at least 3 Agatha Christie books. And I would like to read at least 3 of the Jane Austen mysteries by Stephanie Barron. I feel like if I can do that, then I will have some great mysteries under my belt for 2023. And that is it. Those are my reading goals for 2023. I kind of feel like I've bitten off a little more than I can chew. I'm not sure if this is actually going to happen this year, but I'm going to try. I'm really excited about all of these goals, and all of these books are ones that I'm like, yes, that's going to be such a good one. So I'm really hoping that that enthusiasm and that excitement will carry me through the year, and hopefully I'll actually be able to accomplish at least part of these goals. So please do leave me a comment down below and let me know, what are your goals for this year? Or are you just kind of like, don't have any goals this year, just reading whatever, just chilling and reading whatever I want, and I don't have any goals to go by? Or are you like me, where you have very set goals and you've already got the books picked out and you've got a very set TBR of what you want to happen this year? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.